Hello Year 3, it's Mr. Howell here with your next science lesson. Today we are looking at how do we move, and our learning objectives are: I can show how muscles work in pairs, I can explain how our muscles allow us to move, and I can consider how the skeleton and muscles impact on strength and speed. In our last lesson, we looked at the skeleton and we looked at how one of the functions of the skeleton was allowing us to move. But there's a few questions I want to ask you about that movement of our skeleton and thinking carefully about how our skeleton is able to move. So just have a think, pause the video. How do skeletons move the body? And I wonder what answer you were able to come up with. Did you think about maybe the nerves and the fact that you have to send a message to get your skeleton to move, to get your body to move? Did you think about any other parts of the body or any other parts of the skeleton that might be attached to the skeleton that might help us to move as well? So I want you to sit there now and I want you to see if you can tell your brain to move your leg. Now this isn't some mind trick, it's just an exercise. I want you to see if you can get your body to move. I want you to see if you can move your leg. So get your brain to tell your leg to move. Hopefully you've done that. Did your leg move? If it didn't, think about maybe why it didn't move. Think about what else needs to be involved in that movement. Can you send a message just to get your bone to move? Is that possible? Why not? Along with our bones, we need something else to allow our bodies to move. Can anyone think what that might be? So, as you might have already guessed from the video lesson, we are going to be looking at muscles, and the muscles are going to be a key part of how our bodies function, how we're able to move, and also thinking about some other aspects that are really, really important with muscles in other parts of our body that keep us alive, as well as the fact that it keeps us moving. So if we ask the question, what are muscles? Pause the video. See if you can come up with an idea as to what you think muscles might be. So muscles are made up of different types of cells, and these cells form to make tissue. And the particular type of muscle that we're really focusing on today is going to be the skeletal muscles, which are made up from just muscle tissue. We will look a little bit about organs that have got muscles in them, and they're made up of more than one type of tissue. As you can see, they're made up of smooth muscle cell and bone cell and nerve cells as well. And that's going to be part of the muscles that help keep us alive. But we're looking primarily today at the movement aspect, so we're going to be looking at how we are able to move and looking at the skeletal muscles. So this is our body with the muscles that you can see. We've got over 600 muscles in our body altogether. And skeletal muscles are the muscles which are attached to bones which enable movement. So they're often attached to bones by tendons and ligaments, which are again sort of fibrous tissues which allow us to move our muscles into different positions. And you can obviously see that there are a vast array of muscles that you can see there which are attached to bones all across the body. And all of that allows us to function and to be able to have that freedom and that flexibility of movement, right from our face, if you think about when we smile or if we frown, and then all the way down to our feet if we can wriggle our toes. That is because of the movement and the muscles which are attached to the skeletal structure. There are some muscles which are attached to organs, which are part of our organs. And I wonder if you can have a think about any organs that might have that muscular tissue attached to it. Have you thought of any? So the hint there is to think of organs that move things around the body. So what moves around our body that's going to rely on a muscle? Let's have a look then. So we've got one of those would be the heart, and this is answering this question here, whether movement of muscles is a voluntary or involuntary decision. Just have a think about what those words mean for a minute. What is voluntary? If you do something voluntarily, or you are volunteering for something, what does that mean? What would the difference be with involuntary? So hopefully you've thought about the prefix work that we did last week in our spellings, and we're thinking about the prefix between involuntary and voluntary that's been added. So volunteering means you are wanting to do something, it's something that you are choosing to do, whereas involuntary means that you're not choosing to do it. So it's something in the context of this lesson that would happen automatically, it's autonomous, and that would be a heart beating. So a heart beating is a muscle, but we don't have any control over the fact that it beats. Now obviously this is a good thing, because that heart is pumping blood around our body, it's pumping oxygen around our body, which is obviously making sure that we are able to survive. You've also got digestive system will have muscles attached to it to allow us to digest food, allowing us to move the food into our stomach from after we've eaten it. But some muscle movement is voluntary as well, and we're able to control it. And the pictures on the right obviously show a little bit of an example about that. So if you can have a think about any other muscles that might exist in the body that would be an involuntary movement, and we'll see if we can come back to that a little bit later on. Here we're going to watch a video, and I want you to look at the following questions as a focus for it. I want you to think about how do the muscles move, and I want you to think about what words are used to describe the movement. So here I want you to concentrate on the vocabulary. I want you to think about the words that are being used and why they're being used and what it is that they're describing.
Skeletons can be remarkably flexible, but the bones of a skeleton don't move on their own. They need muscles to pull them.
Muscles are very important. You use muscles every time you move. You've got over 600 muscles in your body. So if you smile, you've used muscles in your face. If I wiggle my fingers, I've used muscles in my hand. So every time you make a movement, you will be using muscles. Muscles are attached to bone by a tendon. If I want to hold my arm out here and I want to bring my hand up towards my shoulder, I've got a muscle on the top and a muscle on the bottom. And the muscle on the top has to get shorter and contract. At the same time, the muscle on the bottom will get longer and
But the
relax.
bones of a skeleton don't move on their own. They need muscles to pull them.
The muscle on the bottom gets shorter and contract. And the muscle on the top gets longer and relaxes. This moving in pair allows us to have the right movement.
The muscle on the top pulls the arm up by contracting. And if you want to put your arm down, the muscle underneath will pull it down. The two muscles work together.
Muscles are very important. You use muscles every time you move. You've got over 600 muscles in your body. So if you smile, you've used muscles in your face.
So think about those key words there about contracting and about them working as a pair. and we're going to do some investigations now to think about how we can apply that to some movements that we might be able to perform. So you can do this with a grown-up at home, or an older or younger brother and sister, or someone that you live with, and you're going to do two different activities. You need to predict the muscles that are going to use before the activity. So have a think about which muscles you think are going to use before you do the activity, and then you're going to see afterwards whether you were correct or not. So the first activity that I want you to do is jump. So I just want you to be stood, and then all I want you to do is to jump up in the air. Now before you do that, think about which muscles you think you're going to use, and then I want you to make that prediction. See if the person that you're working with agrees with you or not. See if they think of a different pair of muscles. Remember, that key part of this movement is working in pairs, and which muscles are going to work in pairs to allow you to do that. And then I want you to jump, and then I want you to see whether your prediction was correct or not. You don't need to write anything down for this part. You're going to have an activity in a moment where you're going to record some results. So don't worry about recording anything. I just want you to do this activity first. And hopefully you've all jumped and also landed, because otherwise you will be suspended in midair. Which is entertaining as that thought might be. Hopefully you are now all back on the ground safely. So was your prediction correct? Did you come up with the right pair of muscles? Did you think about how you might use the muscles in your legs? Did you think about if there was any other muscles that you might have used to help you get momentum up into the air? Sometimes when you look at athletes that are long jumpers or triple jumpers, where they're running really fast and they're jumping, actually they will often swing their arms and use their arms to make them go further to get momentum. So there might have been some other aspects, but the muscles primarily that you would have used would have been those in your legs. The next activity I want you to do is I would like you to sit down in a comfortable sitting position, and I want you to imagine that I've asked you a very, very interesting question, and you've got an excellent answer that you would like to share. But following our school rules, you know that you need to put your hand up and not shout out. And you're going to see if you can predict before you put your hand up which muscles you might use when you put your hand up in the air. Make sure there's no one above you, or that there's no one still suspended in midair from their jump, and that you can put your hand up safely. And then see which muscles you have used. Can you feel those muscles that you might be using at the moment? And you can imagine the fact that I am now sat here with my arm in the air as well, and I'm thinking about which muscles I'm using, and I wonder if your prediction was correct. So my hand's down now. Have a think, and you can put your hands down as well. Have a think about which muscles it was that you were using. Was it your arms? Was it your shoulders? Was it a mixture of the two? So thinking carefully about this activity, this is what your task is going to be, and you're going to have a sheet to record your answers on for this task today. So the task that you're going to have is going to be able to apply the learning that we've done in this lesson. And I hope you've enjoyed those little activities as well. And you will have a muscle activity sheet allocated to you, and it has got some tasks for you to complete. There is also a space for you, if you would like to attach a picture of you performing one of those tasks, and it would be fantastic to see some of those, but please don't feel that you have to. And I want you to remember, when you're answering the questions that are attached to your task, I want you to remember to use the key vocabulary that you have learnt in the lesson. So I want you to think about those keywords that we've been thinking about, the muscles working in pairs, about the contraction, about the contracting muscle, which gets shorter, I want you to think about the relaxing muscle, which gets longer. And I want you to think about how those muscles are attached to the skeleton, thinking back to last week's lesson about those muscles working to move our skeleton. Thank you very much, Year 3. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Next week's lesson will be slightly different. We're going to be pulling all of our learning from this unit together in some activities and some experiments that we're going to be doing next week. So I look forward very much to seeing all of your hard work with that one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.